viewers, this is our special coverage, of course, International Women's Day. We've got two new panelists with us, Sanyade Okoli, of course, a regular on the Global Business Report, CEO of Alpha Africa Advisory, and Adenike Adeyinka, Executive Director at the Fate Foundation. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Sanyade, let me start with you. You're the CEO of an advisory firm. You're in financial services, investment banking, fundraising, and so on and so forth. Diversity at the executive level, from where you sit, what would you say on it? Is it improved? Is it getting better? What's your take on diversity at the executive level in corporate?
It's definitely improved, but of course there's still a way to go. When you look at the statistics, etc., we're now having women on boards about 17%, which coincidentally and actually in Nigeria is actually higher. It's about 20-21%. Africa actually fares quite well relative to other parts of the world in terms of women's representation on boards and senior leadership. But of course, when we're talking about gender balance, we're talking about representation of between 40 to 60%. So there's still quite a way to go.
Thank you so much for that. Adenike Adeyinka, you, of course, Executive Director at the Fate Foundation. You deal a lot with SMEs. Same question. With the SMEs you're seeing and dealing with, is there enough diversity in them? And also, how are women-led SMEs faring so far with what you've seen?
Yeah, so if you look at the last data from SMEDAN and NBS that surveyed micro, small, and medium enterprises in Nigeria, we saw women playing about 45-46% across all MSMEs in Nigeria. But if you look specifically at the micro and then the SME segments are the larger businesses, you find out that the women are only 22% in SME segments. And then there are states so even some states like Lagos help to make up for that number. So yes, you're finding women increasingly coming into the entrepreneurship space and starting and growing businesses, particularly in sectors like manufacturing, agribusiness, education, a lot of sectors that have social impact, but we're not having enough women in growth stage businesses. And really that's where the focus should be. Yes, we want to get women into entrepreneurship, but we really want to make sure that we push and we support and we enable and provide the enablement for more women to play in the SME space.
Fantastic. All right, so I asked this question of the last panel. I'm going to repeat it for you both. It was about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. But Sanyade, how do we get more young ladies aspiring to be a CEO of an advisory company or in financial services if their interest is veering towards arts, for instance, and with this within the context of trying to close the gap of representation?
Okay, so we're talking about business, we're talking about STEM, we're talking about art. So I'd say, for example, my degree is in mechanical engineering, but I went straight from engineering. I never worked a day as an engineer post my degree. I went trained as an accountant and went into more finance. And when I was training as a chartered accountant, it was with Arthur Andersen of those days. You had people who'd studied, politics and economics, and, politics, sociology, different subjects. So having gone towards the arts does not preclude you from going into finance, but of course you do need to be sufficiently numerate to be able to do finance. But I think the key thing is the messaging about whether or not we're telling them that they can't. As long as the young girls see role models across all spheres of society, and there is the general enabling environment and empowering message that you can do whatever you want to do, then they will aspire to be all that they can be.
Excellent. What's your take, Adenike?
So if you look at STEM, there's the technology aspect of it, and I'll use like digital literacy and then financial literacy aspects. And those two are very crucial in providing the education that not just women but entrepreneurs across the board require to be able to build and grow their business. Because digital technology really breaks down barriers to reach markets. The way a lot of social media platforms are is that you even have access to your consumer data and how your business and products are doing when you put that in that space. Financial literacy is the #1 barrier to a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly women entrepreneurs, in also accessing funding and also being able to grow their business. So you're looking at things around how do I separate my business from my personal expenses, because a lot of times women use the expenses from their business, not for themselves, but to support their families, to support their communities across the board. So ensuring that women entrepreneurs in particular, who have even shown more adaptability to digital technology knowledge need to be provided with that information, with the knowledge, with the tools, because it breaks down barriers, and wherever they are, they're able to get that knowledge to build their business, to also build their business in such a way where they can generate jobs and then grow it themselves and empower themselves. So when we're talking about inclusion with the STEM, it definitely applies to even supporting women SMEs.
Fantastic. And I want to stick with you, Adenike, because earlier you were giving us some stats on, as far as women-led SMEs versus male and where the growth needs to happen. Should the focus be, let me ask, where should the focus be? I was going to ask as far as the type of SMEs that we see, maybe from healthcare to, arts and so on and so forth, whereas male-led SMEs are more, in a certain area. How do we get more women into those male-dominated SMEs? Or how do you see that working out?
So, the thing, if you're looking at Nigeria, I'll speak for Nigeria because that's what I know. It's diverse. And in that diversity is that you account for each of the different segments that's there. The gender segments, the business segments, the sector segments. And the important thing is that you want to, and I'll pick up on something Sanyade said, is that you want to open the playing field. That wherever I find an opportunity to play in, or wherever I desire to play in as a woman entrepreneur, I'm able to play there effectively and grow my business as well as I want to. So I think that's really the idea. It's really to ensure that if a woman goes into the education space, to the fintech space, to agribusiness space, there are as many opportunities as it is. But for women in particular, is understanding that there are a lot more limitations around them. So if you look at the last 1 year where a lot of women were working from home, if their businesses did not require that they were essential services, they're also caregivers, care providers, teachers, and we're talking about something about that experience. And now considering that women also have to carry that extra load, even in terms of even running the business. So making those accommodations. Sometimes those accommodations can be as simple as if you're providing support programs, understand that that woman has children she may need to pick up in school. So certain times may or may not work for her. Try to understand that for funding, there are certain collateral requirements she may not have. So that flexibility has to be provided for in terms of the consideration. So open the playing field, ensure that the support is robust enough and is also considerate enough. But I think the most important thing also is that, we do a lot of programs, but we don't learn from the programs. If we design women support programs for women entrepreneurs, are they working? Why are they working? What's making them work? How can we adapt that and then scale those programs at the end of the day?
Fantastic. So I'm taking a break real soon, but I want to come back to you, Sanyade. In fact, I'll have both of you answer this. The Choose to Challenge hashtag, which is the theme for this year for International Women's Day, which says that there needs to be a vocal calling out of gender bias and inequality. At the corporate level, are corporations paying enough attention to gender bias in their, codes of conduct and so on and so forth? Is there enough of an effort there from your point of view?
I think there's definitely more emphasis. There's more awareness for a lot of the organizations. But as I said, when you just look at the statistics, it's still a way off. And picking up on what Adenike was saying, a lot of it is actually in the mind. It's about belief sets. It's about what, people in the organization, and I chose the word people specifically because sometimes it's not just men, it's also women believing in terms of what they think their roles should be in those organizations. You hear a lot of talk now about the glass door, which is not just about preventing you from going up, but even, for example, moving from more support type roles to more P&L type operational roles, because it's from those roles that people actually tend to go towards the CEO role. So we need to be looking both at the glass ceiling and the glass door and taking concerted effort and recognizing that it's a journey. It's not today, but we need to be very deliberate and committed today.
Fantastic stuff. Okay, we're going to take a break right now, but I'll come to you, Adenike, I'll come to you right after the break in order to answer that question as far as SMEs and gender bias and inequality. We'll be right back after the break. It's a special International Women's Day on the Global Business Report on Arise News. Stay tuned. Welcome back. It's the Global Business Report on Arise News, special coverage of International Women's Day. We're still, of course, joined by Sanyade Okoli, CEO of Alpha Africa Advisory, and Adenike Adeyinka, who is the Executive Director at the Faith Foundation. So we're talking about, before we went to break, the Choose to Challenge hashtag. Sanyade gave her thoughts there. SMEs are so concerned about, funding, capital, and so on. In your view, are we seeing enough focus on, gender bias and inequality at the SME level? What do you think?
So if we speak about funding, I think one of the ways it's important to also look at, speaking with what is also relevant for women entrepreneurs, is funding not just from the cash perspective, but also for the things that may require cash but can be given in non-cash ways, so technical support. A lot of women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs across board require funding, but if you drill down, some of it is to access markets, to access larger markets. So some of it is to overcome regulatory hurdles. And that's why the role of policy is also important in trying to address issues around funding. And that's also why having women also in terms of the conversations around policy design is also important, because it's not just enough, and we see a lot of that, oh, we're doing women programs on this, women funding on this, but if there's not a user-centered design to understand what exactly are we trying to address, how will that fund address that, how will we know when the fund is addressing that, you don't do that. So we're seeing a lot of programs that are coming up because they understand that access to markets is a problem. A lot of women are moving into the agribusiness value chain. They have products that they want to ship and market within Nigeria, across the region also too. And part of that problem is understanding the laws, understanding the policies to be able to even ship those products out of the country, understanding even the local regulatory requirements, whether it's from NAFDAC, SON, and all the other regulatory bodies, and then informing and engaging and handling them through that process. So rather than even providing funding for those type of needs, you provide that technical support, which will go a significantly long way.
In closing that gap,
in
right?
closing that gap. So even when we talk about inclusivity, is to say what are the issues we're trying to solve and what are the different ways to solve that problem and what are the different things we can put on ground to ensure that those gaps are addressed.
Fantastic. A few minutes left. Sanyade, what is the significance of today to you? As the previous panel, is it about just celebrating today, or the other camps that say, no, it should be a 365-day? But what does today mean?
So today is the day when you remember about us as women,
yes, right.
and you celebrate and honor us. And every other day is when we remember that we're women and we've got to push things forward.
Right.
So it's slightly facetious, but yes, it's good to have the day, but actually my Instagram post today was saying I look forward to the day where we no longer need to have just one day, because every day we're equally honored and valued, recognizing that we all bring something to the plate.
Fantastic. And Adenike, what do you think? What is the significance of today to you?
Women are half of the population in Nigeria. And until we ensure that they're equally focused on and supported, regardless of whatever path they choose to make, right from when they're born up until however old they are, until the opportunities are there, evenly distributed. And it's not just a matter of percentage. You know, people talk about you may have access, but you don't have power. So it's not just about giving us 40%, 30%, or whatever it is. But I knowing that because I'm a woman, I'm not less, I don't have less opportunities or less access to any opportunity or anything I want to do, then we would have addressed the problems that a day like today is looking to.
So you're both championing action. We need action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Adenike Adeyinka, Executive Director at the Faith Foundation, Sanyade Okoli, CEO of Alpha Africa Advisory. Thank you both for joining us to have this conversation. Really appreciate your insights.